You ever wonder what separates the sales teams doing 500K per month or even $1 million per month from the ones stuck at 30K per month? Well, over the last few years, I've built and managed sales teams that have generated over $20 million in revenue. I've coached and led over 320 sales reps, managed teams doing over 1.6 million per month in revenue, and served in 10 industries in the high-ticket online sales space. Before all that, I spent 8 years in military reconnaissance, leading teams in complex environments overseas. And I've seen the same pattern show up again and again. And today I'm going to walk you through the exact framework I use to build sales teams that scale step by step. So let's start with the foundation. So first, a machine ramping process for new salespeople. Now, the problem with most sales teams ramping or onboarding process, it is either a case of one, it's either a sink or swim approach where you just throw them a script, give them 1 to 2 call recordings and then some payment links and expect them to hit KPI without clear guidelines for performance and for activity. Or two, it's like a university tech course where the salesperson spends more time actually learning 100 different CRM activities and SOPs that are not the 80-20 to producing sales and revenue. And because of that, you sap the initial energy and necessity that the new salesperson has that should be focused in on the 1 to 2 critical skills required to actually hit KPI. So this is how sales managers burn valuable resources, i.e. the limited time and lead volume that is going to be on hand to allocate to that new salesperson, and they end up facing high turnover due to a critical skill gap. So you want to use what I refer to as the 80-20 ramping strategy. Now, the key to successfully ramping salespeople consistently is to rigorously train them solely on the 80-20 by asking yourself this one fundamental question. What are the 1 to 2 specific skills or critical competencies in this role that if we're not focused on from day one would negate the chance of someone in that role having any success, regardless of how many other trainings or other skills, for example, with CRM workflows or status changing that they had. This will help you minimize the energy drain and skill neglect from focusing on non-critical or non-revenue generating activities like complex CRM workflows that if you give them, they'll focus on those just as hard as the directly revenue generating skills. Now, I'll lay out a few actual examples of the 80-20 ramping applied to a couple of clients of mine. So first, for a B2C business opportunity closer role, we ramped a new rep with 80% of our focus on the skill of executing the sales conversation, but more importantly, within that 80% of that was targeted at focusing on the phase of the call that is commonly referred to as objection finding. Now, the reason why we did that was because unlike many other business opportunity offers where the unique mechanism is just that, unique, where the prospect doesn't believe they are actually competent at the specific business model already, whereas in my specific client's industry, the majority of prospects believe they are already somewhat competent enough at the skill that the client teaches despite not having reached really any success. Yet they still carry a false sense of authority, which is holding them back from getting the help required to actually hit their income goals, which will almost always lead to a DIY objection or a do-it-yourself objection unless a sufficient enough expert or authority frame is established by the salesperson on the call. So we made this the 80-20 focus during ramping with at least 1 hour per day, 5 days per week, solely on both studying gold standard call recordings of this phase being executed and through specific role play training, going over and over until the salesperson achieved the level of competence required where we knew that they would succeed. Now, for another client in B2B who was ramping up a new SDR or appointment setter, the 80-20 focus was to optimize the 1 to 2 skills within the setter call conversation to that 1% detail, which was simply to 1, get a problem, and 2, effectively handle any form of resistance when navigating the financial qualification questions. Now, this is the central reason why both of those salespeople were successful at ramping up and hitting KPI and becoming a bedrock for the sales team. Now, this is the textbook process for training a new setter hire, for example. So you obviously want to conduct the training via Zoom or video conference. And the meeting should typically be between 45 minutes to an hour, 5 days per week. Now, on day one, you want to go through an overall understanding of the objectives of the setter call outline. So the focus should be purely on explaining the objectives of each phase through this step-by-step process. So step 1, explain the objective, i.e. what we do and why we do it and what benefit it provides to the call. In step 2, we want to get confirmation that the setter actually understands at least the explanation, just to ensure that they have a map and they're not just being a scripted robot. Because when someone's asking a question that they don't understand why they're asking it, it's not going to have that weight, right? And you're not going to get the feedback from the prospect that you're actually looking for. And in step 3, if time permits, you want to start role playing on that first call, just concentrating on raw reps or volume, and then just pause them when they make mistakes. There's 2 options to go about giving feedback, and I'll walk you through them now. Option 1, which is, it's fine, is just a straight autocratic feedback system where, for simplicity, you just tell them what they did wrong, you get confirmation that they understand it, and then you tell them the right way to do it. Now, in option 2, which is more ideal, is you use what's called Socratic questioning. If time permits, you want to actually go back and forth with the new setter, asking them what they felt they did wrong, why they weren't able to overcome it, and what they're going to do next time. Because if the setter is able to identify their own problems, you're going to start building problem solvers on their own, so they can effectively get better with you as opposed to you just feeding information down their throat. Now, that is what's going to take the 45 minutes to an hour for that meeting. Now, the concurrent homework that you want to give this new appointment setter between that first and second call is to listen to around 2 hours or 5 to 10 calls on repeat of gold standard call recordings, actively learning and coming up with questions that they'll be writing down for the concurrent meetings they're going to have with you. On top of that, you want to give the setter industry know-how education so they can understand the industry jargon, and they're going to again have that weight when they're speaking to the prospect. Now, from day 2 to day 5, you want to focus on drilling and refinement of the setter call. Now, you're going to repeat the day 1 process, but now that the objectives have been explained, you can shift to focus drilling on the 80-20, which we identified, for example, with that B2B setter client, was purely on identifying a problem with the prospect and navigating any resistance around the financial qualification questions. So you're going to continue doing this for the next 3 to 4 days or the remainder of the week. And the goal is to train them until they sound like they've hit what we call baseline, or a level equates to initial success, where with just more calls and more experience, they will improve. Now, the other focus you want to have with this new appointment setter during that week is to ensure that you give them best practices for moving through the CRM competently to support a workflow that meets dial KPI. Number 2, establishing baseline metrics. So the most important numbers and drivers in your sales data need to be such that they're facilitating a constantly profitable. For example, if you go after a target cost per sale, obviously before amplifying and throwing 10 reps on the team at once. So you want to track and document these key metrics: the lead to booking percentage, the speed to lead, which is the first contact time, your show rate percentage, and then your close rate percentage. Now, first is your lead to booking rate, which is the percentage of leads that convert into booked calls. Then from there, within that, you have your sub metrics to problem find and problem solve your lead to booking rate, including your fundamental metrics of, leads, dials, and pickups. But more granular than that is your pickup to lead percentage, your pickup to dial percentage, and your pickup to conversation over 15 seconds. You also want to look at your conversation over 15 seconds to 120 seconds, your pickup to conversation from 120 seconds to booking. And you also don't want to forget your dial to lead ratio to ensure that you have the required amount of leads for the effort being put in by your SDRs. You want to aim for a 5 to 10 minutes during working hours. Now, other sub metrics to track include talk time duration and total duration between dials. You also want to monitor hours worked, dials per hour, and bookings per hour. Now, obviously, the show rate to sales calls percentage we know is the rate of prospects showing up for booked calls calculated as the show ups divided by booked calls. Now, what we want to do is track sub metrics like show up per SDR and per sales rep. This is going to help you identify variables in the activity or behaviors of the SDRs and the sales reps and identify what is the process that is optimal for getting the most amount of people to show up or the optimal prospects to show up. Now, you also want to be able to track the show up per time of day, per country, and per application grade if applicable. Number 3, rigorous quality control for performance and SOP implementation. Now, the problem most sales managers have is they either pay vague lip service to quality control altogether, or they go the complete other way and drown salespeople in overcomplicated reviews that confuse them more than they help them. And because of that, salespeople miss KPIs, team turnover spikes, and you waste valuable time and lead volume on salespeople that are either complacent or they're lost. So what you need to do is build a pragmatic quality control control or QC process that focuses on reviewing gold standard calls with either founder-led, your own, or top reps in the team's meetings to set the bar high and ultimately consistently show them what good sounds like. Now, as far as reviewing bad sales calls, you want to minimize reviewing these in team settings because essentially the great reps will get bored and then the underperformers won't get the attention required to fix the issue. Now, a caveat to that is just pulling up flaws on an otherwise, decently good call is fair game to mention. Now, for struggling reps or those on a performance improvement plan, you want to tackle their bad calls in one-on-one so you can address the issues with more attention. Now, for SDRs or appointment setters specifically, you want to pull 5 to 10 recordings of their calls every single day from the CRM that weren't executed effectively. You want to log the details in a tracker so you essentially have continuity and a record of the progression, and ultimately so you can start spotting patterns that they have at scale as consistent issues around navigating, for example, the financial qualification questions, and then from there provide specific core reviews to be more efficient and targeted in improving their skill. And lastly, building elite sales culture. Now, the TLDR is that culture is just essentially the aggregate of two agents, the founder and the sales manager. So both yours and the founder or sales manager's level of commitment and proficiency to the business is what sets the team standards at the end of the day. So you need to be no less than the epitome of what a salesperson should be at your company because they're simply going to model you. Now, a dialed in sales manager and founder will naturally create a culture of salespeople that essentially smokes out the bad fits for you. So you think of it like a human body fighting a parasite. Your team will automatically flush out people who don't align with your attributes, your intent, and your values. So there'll be very little manual eradication actually needed, and this will handle about 80% of keeping the bad eggs out of your business. So first, the attributes are the bedrock for how I manage sales teams and build culture. Now, the attributes I typically impart upon a high-performing sales team are these. 1 is selfless commitment to clients and the sales team. 2 is unwavering determination towards mission success. 3 is unmitigated moral courage in every action that you make as a sales professional. Number 4 is absolute accountability for outcomes and results. Number 5 is unmatched execution, where everything you do is a deliberate action. And lastly is laser-like focus. So second, you want to identify the difference between drains and batteries, or problem-centric versus solution-centric salespeople, which is one of the most critical pieces to quality control in your sales culture. Drains will kill the culture and batteries will fuel your culture. So problem-centric people or drains talk in problem-centric or problem-based language where they say, I couldn't get the deal done because of problem. Full stop, no solution. They're low energy and they're low frequency people that end up whining. And the last time I checked, nobody gets paid to be the dedicated team whiner, right? They'll play the blame game and they'll tank the culture and your performance. Whereas solution-centric people or batteries, at the very least say, I failed to get the deal done because I couldn't overcome that problem and I need some form of solution or a specific solution. They'll say, can you help me how to overcome that? And at the very best, they'll say, I failed to get the deal done because I couldn't overcome specific problem and I need specific solution. So I'm going to take specific action, e.g. call back, do dead lead recovery, or follow up to make sure that I actually hit the solution and I hit my projections. So you want to smoke out problem-centric reps because they're the most pervasive culture killers. You want to build a team of solution-centric batteries who take ownership and drive results. Now, third, alignment is everything. So you need to rally your team by tying every goal to the mission and the intent. Even optimizing the most seemingly mundane data point like pickup rate should connect to the bigger picture, and it's a means to an end for them to make more money and you to achieve the mission. Now, as a sales manager, you have to remember that you're always selling. So you need to relentlessly convey conviction in your team's attributes, their intent, and their mission. What this will do is kill toxic politics by focusing on the fact that whilst you're doing your job, what matters above everything else is mission success. And fourth, you need to get in the trenches as a sales manager. So you want to conduct group sales calls, do founder-led sales calls, do manager callbacks, and occasionally get on the calendar, slam some deals to show your salespeople that you're not all talk. This will show your salespeople what's possible. It'll keep the team aligned. Now, this for context is how I've retained reps again 3 times longer than many other sales managers. I've turned them into my biggest advocates and watched them push for their own goals and the company's mission. Now, the reason is I go above and beyond in every way, and I exhaustively help and show my salespeople how to succeed. Now, you can't fake this because genuine care is the single most beneficial belief that you can hold. Your team will go through basically any struggle for you if they know that you're in their corner beyond monetary gain. Because as the saying goes, people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care.